Welcome in, everyone, on a Friday night. It is the Big Ten Live Show. It is the voice of college football. Therefore, it is what? It is the best in discussion, debate, and analysis. We have left the link both on X, Twitter, and there in the chat. We've also left the link. I must be fired up tonight because we have also left the link in the description of the video. I almost never remember to do that. But the link is also in the chat. So please join us. Give me a call. Again, discussion, debate, analysis. That's what we do. Discussion, debate, debate, debate. Where have I heard the word debate recently? Debate. Oh, yeah. Give me a call. We can definitely debate better than those old guys that were debating on TV last night. I think we can do much better than that. All right. Appreciate you being here. We are going to go through a number of news and items and notes in the world of college football pertaining to the Big Ten. Appreciate you being here as always. Just hit the like button. You know you will. So just hit the like button now. If you're not subscribed, which is roughly 50 to 60% of our audience, please subscribe here at the Voice of College Football. It's an easy thing to do. Just click the subscribe button. And the best way to go about it is hit that bell for the notifications to know when we go live. Big Ten football fans, of course, you're wanting to keep track of that rival conference, the SEC. We delivered an SEC power block earlier today, so check it out. Also, the most annoying fan base in college football. Check out that video. So, two big video offerings today here at the Voice of College Football. Number one, the SEC power block, which you can basically go to sleep to tonight. It lasts about 4.5 hours. Then we have the most annoying fan base in college football. So if you have yet to check out the video, and I'm sure most of you have a pretty strong opinion on this, if you interact on social media, interact on here, leave your selections there in the chat. The most annoying fan base in college football. What do you think my choice was? All right. We are again going to go to the news of the day. The Amazon links in the description section of all the videos. Please support the channel. This is the one way in which you can support us here at the Voice of College Football in a financial way without spending one red cent. 1 penny, nothing, zero. No cost to you, but you can greatly contribute here to the Voice of College Football by doing your Amazon shopping using our link. I wanted to check out the commits across college football, so let's do that. Oregon turned in a big day. And so, again, we are only focused on the Big Ten right now. Jordan Davidson, or is that Jordan Davison? We've talked about him specifically on the Ohio State show. But lo and behold, he is committed to Oregon. Out of the famed Mater Dei High School in Santa Ana, California, class of 2025, top 200 recruit according to 247 Sports. Rivals on 3 and others, as you can see right there, rank him much higher than 247 Sports, as they've got him safely inside the top 100 overall players. Top 12 running back, according to 247 Sports, number 6, according to the composite. So think about that. They must have a number 3, number 4 type ranking from the other services. Top 10 to 15 player in the state of California. Again, Oregon has made that move. And 6 feet 216, Jordan Davison, or Jordan Davison. Big pickup for the Ducks. How likely is it that he's going to stay an Oregon Duck? Well, generally speaking, not necessarily speaking to just his recruitment in particular or his commitment level to Oregon football, but just speaking in general. Check out the video that we posted a few days ago where we looked at the top 250 players in both the 2022 and the 2023 classes. So the last 500 players selected as top 250 players. We bypassed 2024 for obvious reasons. They've only played one season, or 2020, yes, 2024. They've yet to play one season in college football, although I'm sure a couple have transferred. So check that out. And right now we're looking at a likelihood of about 25% that a player transfers within the first 2 years if he is a top player in the country. About 25% chance. Those are the numbers right now. Washington and Jed Fish picked up a player today. They got one Caleb Smith, defensive lineman, 6'4.5", 265, out of Birmingham, Alabama. Another Oregon commit, Josiah Sharma, out of Folsom, California. So that's 2 Californians to Oregon. Number 42 rated player at his position of defensive line. UCLA got a quarterback. Not exactly highly touted at this point, out of Illinois. Colton Jamino, the 106th rated quarterback in the country to UCLA. Maryland with a few pickups today. Jaden Ships, cornerback, out of Maryland. And it must be a buddy here. Another player from Maryland out of Severn, Maryland at Archbishop Spalding High School. Malik Washington, quarterback. Look at that ranking. Top 15 quarterback in the nation. Number 3 rated player in the state of Maryland. Top 200 player overall. Chooses Maryland, as does Travaris Daniels. Mike Loxley and staff busy today. Travaris Daniels out of Fort Lauderdale, Florida, linebacker. The Ohio State University gets a defensive lineman out of Matthews, North Carolina, in Trajan Odom, 40th ranked at his position, 6'4", 285. Nebraska, Brian Tapu, offensive tackle out of Utah, 6'7", 295, 70th rated at his position. And let's grab Michigan State here with Derek Simmons, defensive lineman, committed on Thursday, 6'3", 270, defensive lineman out of Frankenmuth, Michigan. Okay. That's the big commitment update for the day. If you've got any news or notes for us, leave them in the chat. We appreciate the super chat contribution as well. Thank you for being here. Again, the lines are open. It's your show, folks. It is your show. I've got a few items here to run through, but basically, I would rather talk to you. Jackson's here, Hummus Hero, and others. Jackson, thanks for the update. 57 days until week 0. Nobody in the Big Ten playing week 0. Georgia Tech, Florida State, the headliner. Then, of course, the next Thursday night, we've got a Minnesota, North Carolina game, I believe, on Fox on the next Thursday night. Good to see John here. Jason's here. And others. I posted a tweet, or I guess it's a post these days, to X not long ago that might interest some Michigan fans in particular. I just was doing some research and I was just curious. So just Check me out. And which reminds me, and I should get to this right now before I forget. You know what? Let's kick off of our next item because we're going to talk a little Twitter/X. So, the home of the voice of college football. That has been my home since, let's see, I don't even know. When did I join? March of 2010, 14 years ago. 14 years on Twitter. There's the fine Twitter page. Something happened in my personal settings a couple weeks ago where it went from white, the white background, and the black lettering, which I prefer, to black with the white lettering, which I don't prefer. It's not a big deal. I can look it up and see how you change that. But it just changed automatically on me, or something was changed. So that is the famed Voice of College Football Twitter page, which has served as a representation, an official page for the Voice of College Football of sorts, but it's also been my own personal page. So it's been both. We had a gentleman who offered to start a Twitter page for us about, let's see, this was in 2020. I recall because it was the COVID season, because that's when he worked on it. So we launched a official Voice of College Football page in 2020. Unfortunately, he just up and left and ditched us. So we had a good start to that. So anyway, this has been the personal page, but also the Voice of College Football page, which has been 95% about college football and about 5% about whatever I want to communicate and talk about. So going forward, starting on July 1st, everyone, please lock it in right here at the VOCFB, the Voice of College Football. This is the page to catch. We will leave the link in the chat. Also, the link's going to be available in all the various description sections of all the videos, because this is going to be 100% college football. And it's going to be revitalized, revamped, reworked, and relaunched on July 1st with stats, facts, trends, rankings, ratings, all of those things right out of the gate. Give us some time to build it up. So we're not going to slam anyone over the head with rankings every hour right out of the gate. We are in the process of retooling here at the Voice of College Football. So we appreciate a number of folks like Jackson, like TJ, like Justin, who are heavily involved in relaunching our Voice of College Football, our official account. And again, will look completely different. You will no longer get to see my wonderful face there, but you will see a different banner and a different profile picture and so forth with a different bio. And you will see, again, constant engagement from us. We want to discuss college football with you. We want to provide stats, facts, trends, lists, engaging type content that will cause you to think. And we will ramp that up on Monday. So that's on July 1st. So we appreciate you jumping online with us. And by no means, if you're not on Twitter, do I encourage you to jump on Twitter. I'm not doing that. But if you're already on Twitter or you care to join us, certainly do that. And then at the same time, I've got my personal page there. So you can join me right there. And that's available as well. If you go to the official college football, Voice of College Football page right now, then you can find your way to my personal X page. And I believe it's allowed to intersperse X and Twitter. I think that's probably grandfathered in at this point. All right. So if you want the college football nonstop, of course, the Voice of College Football official Twitter account. And if you want all sorts of rants and other musings from me, whether those be music, politics, classic TV, whatever they might be, faith and family, then join me on my personal X account. All right, let's get to the college football news of the day. So I don't expect you to be able to read that, but this helps me to read it. So there's a number of national items that have come down just in the last couple of days concerning college football nationally that, of course, affect the Big Ten, but not just the Big Ten. So we see there on the first note there that the transfer portal changes have been voted on. So the Division I Council, which is meeting this week, voted to introduce proposals that would change notification of transfer windows for undergraduate students in football included from a total of 45 days to 30 days. College football moved from 60 to 45 last October. This would move it from 45 to 30. Now 45 to 30 days on the table. This comes from Division I Council voted in the spring to not limit the number of times an athlete can now transfer. Hopefully that is coming. I personally do not want to see any particular limit placed on how many times an athlete can transfer total, but I would like to see a limit placed on the commitments for one particular season or calendar year. I don't think there's any reason outside of some type of family hardship that anyone should be allowed to or justify reneging on their commitment, their signed commitment for one football season, for one calendar year, or at least one football season, that they cannot be able to hold to their commitment that they have signed. Not talking about a verbal commitment. I'm talking about once they are collegiate football players, that they should be committed to that team for one season. There was nothing too more disturbing than going through the transfer portal as I did each and every day, multiple times per day. We did a transfer portal update, the one window after the regular season, then the one window, or I'm sorry, after the season, the entire season. And then the other window, of course, was after spring football. And seeing guys that had just played a football season transferred within a few days after said season, the 2023 season, and then within 3 weeks, 4 weeks, 5 weeks, they are transferring again. No. And that could turn out to be one of a few benefits of these players being paid, is that there's a great benefit to being paid. We all know that, right? That's probably pretty high on most of our lists of the work compensation would be actually just getting the paycheck. That seems to be more than anything else why we are at work. Okay. But there are obligations attached to that. There are responsibilities. And these student athletes are in the process of becoming young men. They are young men, and they are in the process of becoming adult men. And part of that process is understanding accountability, understanding responsibility, understanding commitment, and understanding that when you sign what used to be a piece of paper, when you sign online, when you offer your signature, that should mean something. And especially if you're going to receive monetary benefit in return, well, you are going to be committed for a period of time. And however this gets fleshed out over the next couple of years, and it's to a certain degree going to get fleshed out before 2025 because these athletes are going to get paid for the 2025 season. At least, the NIL is going to be connected to the name, image, and likeness that is officially profited by the various sports, that there's going to be a trade for that. And the trade is commitment. I hope that takes place. I would like to see that these players, maybe out of high school, sign at least a 1-year contract, if not longer than that. And there might be extra incentives if they obligate themselves and commit themselves to further than 1 year. Just like, again, we have to face in the real world. If you have ever signed a contract, any type of employment contract, you typically sacrifice some level of security for money up front, or you sacrifice the money up front for a level of security. We see it all the time in professional sports where certain athletes will, let's say, sign a 10-year contract for a little bit less per season than they would have a 3-year contract because they are banking on wanting some level of security. But there might be an athlete who just signs a 1-year contract. We've seen this many times throughout the years where an athlete will sign a 1-year contract because they are banking on their ability. The market isn't quite right, and they're not in the best of places right this second, but they are banking on their ability to put in a great season and then cash in when they could have signed a longer contract. That is part of being a grown-up and determining what's best for you, what's best for your family, and making a decision, a difficult decision. So that's what that is. So again, we've got so that's concerning the transfer portal. And as it reads there by Steve Berkowitz, it appears as though it's up for a vote, but that vote has not yet been taken. Now, according to Pete Thamel, these same officials, the Division I Council meeting this week in Indianapolis, are proposing changes that would result in 3 signing periods. So we've got the signing period that is the traditional one in February. About 6 or 7 years ago was introduced the early signing period, which has become the National Signing Day in December. And now there's a proposal for a third signing day, the last Wednesday in June. So it would have been 2 days ago for another signing period. I have not thought this through to come up with any particular issues with this or any type of stance that I am certainly pro another signing period or dead set against a signing period. If there are athletes who want to get it over with and believe that they know where they want to go and have certainly sewed up the NIL decision and had those negotiations and know what that's going to look like. And if they want to make that decision so they don't have to hear from potential head coaches and assistant coaches from other teams and want to make that decision and get it over with so that they can spend their senior season and their senior year in peace, so be it. Unless somebody can enlighten me to any other conditions there, any other considerations to make, and I might be missing some because, again, I've not given this any thought. I have no issue with that. None whatsoever. And according to Big Sky Commissioner Tom Wistrelli, I really butchered his name. It looks like Wistrasil, that even the early signing period could be moved up to December 4th, or in 2024, that would be the date. It would be the first Wednesday of the month, or before conference championship weekend. Okay, this article by Ross Dellinger is a rather lengthy one, so we will not read it, but basically I've brushed through it, and this is about a serious discussion involving the commissioners of the power conferences and NCAA President Charlie Baker. And outside the room, In these same meetings are 28 other Division I commissioners that, again, are in these same conferences, but not in this room, in this conversation. And that involves separating the Power Four from the rest of Division I. And that would be done for one sole reason, and that's because of the difference in purpose, the difference in intent, the difference in structure, the difference in monetary gain between those four and everyone else. Now, how that would work with basketball in terms of schools like Villanova, Gonzaga, and others that have big-time college basketball programs that make a ton of money, but they would not be part of the Power Four. I don't know how that would work. But as it says in one of these paragraphs, historically significant, the governance model segregates the more than 350 schools in Division I, creating what some describe as a separate subdivision for the Power Schools, similar to a proposal Baker publicly unveiled last December. The Power Conferences are expected to hold authority to create and even enforce their own rules, many of them related to the antitrust settlement and new athlete revenue sharing model coming to college athletics. Paying players and taking a portion of the revenue, which the number that is being bantied about is in the neighborhood of $22 million max, up to $22 million per year per school. And I believe that's for the entire athletic department. So let's say it is 90% of that for most schools is going to be football. This is another big topic of debate. That is, if it's based on revenue generation, if it's based on some type of crazy equality push, then it's going to be equally distributed in some fashion. I have no issue with it being a combination of the two, much like what we see with the likes of the major schools. Let's say, we'll talk Big Ten, of course. In the Big Ten, I would have no issue with Ohio State and Michigan. And then the other schools, I'm not ignoring Penn State and USC. You know who the schools are. But it starts with Ohio State and Michigan going to the Big Ten and saying, we make the most money, pay us the most. And then the Big Ten, in turn, devising a model that says, well, we're going to split the income. We're going to split the revenue, and half the revenue we are going to distribute evenly because we are all members of this conference. We are equal members. Everyone has a say. Everyone has a part. Indiana has been a part of the Big Ten since 1896. Everyone should have an equal share for this bucket. This, let's say, 50% bucket. But the rest of the revenue, the other 50%, okay, we have to honor and recognize the schools that make the money. Because now there is a competition, not just for athletes, but that competition involves above board, above the table payments to athletes. So if your program is producing the money, then you should get an unequal amount that you have earned. So I think there is room for both. I think, like most things, look at government. Usually works best when there is a push and pull, when there is a pulling and tugging from the other end. There is tension, meaning counter punches, balance, checks and balances between the two. The same thing here. Completely agree with that. So that's the way I would do it. That's not the way it's necessarily going to be done. And none of you should be here at the Voice of College Football for the latest news necessarily. When it comes to certain things, of course, I'm going to grab the news as quick as anybody else, and we're going to dive into it. But I am not an insider, nor do I care to be the first to break any news. That's not why we're here. But Yeah, so that's quite interesting. Quite interesting on that front. While we're at it, we might as well get some folks fired up here. Because again, we major on rightly dividing national championships here at the Voice of College Football. And if you've been watching us for any period of time, you know that, let's see, last off season, I have been, over the past few days, I have been wrestling with the idea of going through every season in the history of college football and making sure that I produce a separate video for every season of college football. And we go through the records, the results, and we rightly divide the national championships. Boom. We say 1936, this is who has claimed a national championship. This is who the various services and computer rankings have awarded national championships to. Let's look at the results. Let's look at the standings and rightly discern. And some people don't like this, but we take away national championships from certain teams that did not earn it, and we give national championships to other teams who did earn it. The result of all that is something I don't like, but it's necessary. And it's that in most seasons, especially prior to 1998, when there was a BCS championship game, of course, that could make a great distinction between the best team in the country, typically, and everyone else. Before that, most seasons, unfortunately, there should be multiple national championships. Most seasons, there are more than one team that earned the championship. And that's just the way it is. So this is a tough call, because if I commit myself to it, then I'm looking at producing about 100 videos on the various seasons. And we did live streams last year where we went through the college football playoff era. We went through the BCS era. We went through the rest of the 1990s, 1980s. I don't believe we got to the 70s. I think that's where we stopped with our national championships. I see a comment from Aaron Taylor about Alabama in the chat. What's interesting about Alabama, because there's so much criticism. Todd says, sounds good. Started tonight. Todd, were you around last offseason for our many live streams where we just basically held a workshop and we would just say, okay, here we go. 2022, let's look at it. Now, obviously, from 2014 through 2023, we're basically just going through a formality. I'm not taking away any national championships from anyone during the college football playoff era. Those were all earned. Okay. So everyone, you're safe with your national championships from the last 10 years. However, there should be a caveat to at least noting I am not handing Florida State a national championship for last year in any such way. But there should at least be a notation that they earned the right to play for a national championship, and they were not afforded that right to play for a national championship. I wrestle with seasons like 2017, because had Alabama won the national championship and had been, let's say, undefeated, won the SEC, won the national championship, then I would clearly say they are the only national champion. Now, again, I want to make this clear. I'm not taking away or even contemplating taking away a national championship from Alabama in 2017. My thought goes to UCF. And it may sound ridiculous to some, but they went undefeated. They did not play in the playoff. They defeated Auburn in the Peach Bowl. Auburn defeated two number one teams in the country that season that played in the national championship game. And to give it poetic justice, UCF defeated Auburn in the same stadium that Alabama beat Georgia for the national championship. And so in that case, since Alabama lost a game, UCF did not lose a game. I believe that UCF should claim a national championship. And so, again, because of the levels of play being Alabama SEC, Power 5, UCF down here, if they had the same record, I would not make that claim. But since UCF went undefeated, and because of who they defeated and who that team defeated, not just one game, 2 games in November, Alabama and Georgia, then I believe UCF has a claim to a national championship. Again, under my system, it's a more messy system because there are multiple national champions most seasons prior to 1998. Even in the BCS era, because the BCS typically didn't get it wrong. I'm not claiming that the BCS got it wrong, but because there were only 2 teams involved, there were other teams who had a claim to play for the national championship. 2013, nobody talks about this. In 2013, Florida State won the national championship, right? They were 13-0. Going into the championship game. They played Auburn. Auburn, by a miracle, beat Alabama. By a few other miracles, beat Georgia and some other teams. But regardless, they won the games fair and square. But they landed in the national championship game opposite Florida State. Here we are 11 years later, and even at the time, most people didn't bat an eye, didn't think twice about, sure, Auburn, they only have 1 loss. They won the SEC. Sure, they should be in the national championship game. And Michigan State shouldn't. Auburn was 13-1. Michigan State was 13-1. Going into the BCS championship game, of course, Michigan State went on to win the Rose Bowl, and especially since they did beat the Pac-12 champion Stanford in the Rose Bowl, but I can't take away a national championship, or I cannot elevate another team to a national championship status with Florida State because Florida State was undefeated. Now, if Florida State had a loss, I would elevate Michigan State to say they earned a national championship as well, but that wasn't the case. But they earned the opportunity to play for a national championship in 2013. They had 1 loss at Notre Dame. If you recall that game, Michigan State fans, I'm not even a Michigan State fan, don't care who won the game. However, they basically got ripped off. That is one of the under the radar games of all time that mattered, that was meaningful in the national championship race that nobody thinks about, nobody talks about other than Michigan State people. There were probably 4 phantom pass interference calls in that game against Michigan State. Darquez Dennard and company. Great defensive backfield at Michigan State. So those things need to be noted and accounted for. And again, it doesn't really affect 2013 other than it should be notated Michigan State was not afforded a chance to play in the national championship game. But Florida State completed the undefeated run. They are the lone national champion. 2008, Florida beat Oklahoma. Florida beat Oklahoma. Florida had a loss going into the game. Oklahoma had a loss. Texas beat Oklahoma. They only had 1 loss. USC, 1 loss. Penn State had 1 loss. They did not get a chance to play for the national championship. So this is what you had at the end of 2008. You had, everybody talks about 2007 being chaos. In 2008, Florida, Oklahoma played in the BCS championship game. USC, I'd have to double check. Somebody can double check me. 1 loss. Penn State, 1 loss. Penn State, 1 loss. And then on top of all that, you had undefeated somebody else. Boise State, TCU, somebody else like that. I'm just saying that college football history has not been written correctly. Not at all. Yeah, imagine Pete Carroll's playoff run. Imagine a playoff with Pete Carroll and USC. They would have been there in 2002, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. I'm not saying they would have won all those or even half of those. We will never know. They would have had a definite shot. They were good enough to win the national championship in any one of those seasons. In none of those seasons could you say that team won the national championship and nobody could touch them. USC couldn't touch them. Nope, I cannot say that about any of those seasons. That includes 02, Ohio State. That includes 03 with LSU winning the BCS championship. All those seasons. Of course, they got to play in 05. They won in 04. They won the split in 03. They won the actual BCS championship game in 04 by 1,000,000 points, 55-19. And then in 05, okay, they got to play that game and they lost fair and square, but they were clearly, that was a toss-up. So they lost fair and square. They should not be the national champion. I'm just saying they showed to be worthy of being on the field, and you could walk away from that game thinking Texas and USC played 10 times. I still think USC was the better team, but they lost the game. So I love doing those sorts of things, and I think it provides value to the college football fan. It is a bit of an education. Moose, Michigan is the SEC killer. Well, Michigan has certainly fared much better than Ohio State against the SEC. There's no question about that. Even during a time in which Ohio State has defeated Michigan more than they've lost to Michigan. Now, you got to go back 15 years. So Michigan does not have a pretty record against the SEC over the last 20 years. So that's kind of an old statement. I'd say in the 90s, somewhat in the 80s, 90s, that Michigan was an SEC killer. But they beat Alabama in 23. They lost to Georgia in 21. That's 1-1. They lost to Bama in 19. Oh, Moose, I'm not going to downplay it. I'm just going to completely obliterate it. It's not accurate. What would you think, everyone, if we called any particular school to be a killer of another conference or another school? Wouldn't they have to win like 80% of the games or something like that? Okay, everybody keep track with me. Michigan beat Bama in 2023. There's a win. Okay? 2022, they didn't play anyone. 2021, they lost to Georgia. Okay, that's 1-1. 2020, 2019, Michigan lost to Alabama. So they're 1-2. Okay. 2018, 2017, they lost to South Carolina in the Outback Bowl, 2017. So that's 1-3. They beat Florida, both in the Citrus Bowl in 2015 and in a season opener. So that's 3-3. Okay. 2014, 2013. I don't think I'm missing any games. 2012, Bama dragged them all over the field in the season opener. That's 3-4. 2011, I'm not thinking of anything there. 2010, they lost to Mississippi State And boy, did they get annihilated in that game. What, 52-14. So there's 3-5. I'm missing any other games. Oh, 2012, I missed the Outback Bowl against South Carolina. They lost that game. 3-6. 2009. So I'm at 3-6 in the last 9 games. Kind of difficult to be a SEC killer at 3-6. I just come with the facts, folks. I merely come with the facts. I am merely the messenger. The SEC was 7-9 against the Power 5 in 2023. Should I spot check you on that one? Okay. Alabama lost to Texas. Alabama lost to Michigan. That's 0-2. Don't believe they played anyone else. Auburn beat Cal. Lost to Maryland. That's 1-3. Don't think they played anyone else. Texas A&M, they lost to Miami. That's 1-4. And they lost to Oklahoma State. That's 1-5. Ole Miss beat Penn State and beat Georgia Tech. That's 3-5. Mississippi State beat Arizona. That's 4-5. LSU beat Wisconsin. They lost to Florida State. That's 5-6. Is that the whole division? Arkansas. Last season, they lost to BYU, right? 5-7. Georgia beat Florida State, 6-7. They beat Georgia Tech, 7-7. Kentucky beat Louisville, and they lost to Clemson in the bowl game. That's 8-8. Let's see. We also have Florida, who lost to Utah and lost to Florida State. That's 8-10. And then we've got Vandy. They lost to Wake. That's 8-11. South Carolina, they lost to Clemson. That's what, 8-12? Is that where we are? 8-12, South Carolina. They lost to North Carolina, 8-13. Missouri beat Ohio State and they beat Kansas State. I got 10-13. We've got anybody else? Tennessee. Tennessee beat Iowa and they beat Virginia. That's 12-13. I got 12-13. That's what I got off the top of my head. Yes. So again, SEC killer 3-6. I just tell the truth, folks. I just tell the truth. All right. Appreciate you being here at the Voice of College Football. We have left the link both in the chat and we've left the link also in the description section of the videos. And we have left the link on X. I would love for Moose to call me sometime. Moose loves to debate me over social media. And we love Moose because Moose does so much for us here at the Voice of College Football, except he just needs to be fact-checked. And I'm not like the political fact-checkers. I'm actually accurate. All right. Well, we appreciate everyone being here at the Voice of College Football. I don't believe that were there any other news and notes I wanted to hit on. I did ask for an annoying fan base. I also think I'm going to post a video where, we'll leave that. We'll leave that one. Jackson, what's going on tonight?
It's going pretty good. How you doing tonight, Mark?
I am doing well. How are you?
I'm doing great. Especially after I saw that scheduling update from FBS schedules where we're going to see Michigan State Notre Dame come back in 2026 on
Yeah, I like
September
that.
9th. Yeah, and especially it's going to be on the 60th anniversary of the 10-10 tie game. And it's going to be on September 19th of 2026. The return game will be in East Lansing in September 18th, 2027. And if we're seeing Notre Dame Purdue back for 5 straight years starting this year, and we're seeing Notre Dame Michigan State come back, and I know that Notre Dame Michigan is going to come back in 2033, but I've got a good feeling it's coming back before the end of this decade.
So you believe that Notre Dame is going to join the Big Ten? Is that what you're
That all
telling us?
depends on Florida State Clemson on what happens with them. But I've got a pretty good idea NBC is going to be a driving force behind it because Notre Dame wants to keep their ties with NBC. They've had that long relationship since the early 90s. They don't want it to be like NBA on TNT. They want to stay they want to stay on NBC as much as possible. And NBC loves the Big Ten, no doubt about it. And they love Notre Dame. So they're going to want to keep everybody happy.
How do we know that Notre Dame is that married to NBC?
Well, we don't know that, but it's going to be interesting to see. They kept that little contract. They signed that contract extension for the next few years.
Yeah, my guess, and this is just a guess, is that Notre Dame doesn't necessarily have any great uh, preference or priority to stay with NBC, but as long as they of course, as you mentioned, they've got a long history. Do we know what year? I'm trying to think what year that would have been that they would have started on NBC. Maybe the
Mm,
late 80s,
1991.
91. Okay, I was going to say, I remember one of the first big games was the Florida State game in South Bend when they beat number one Florida State, and that was in 93. So, okay, 1991. So, yeah, I'm not discounting that they want to keep the contract and they've got a long-standing relationship with NBC and everything seems to be harmonious. But I just believe that if they could move to another network and make more money, then I don't know that they're that attached to NBC. But I would like to see the powers that be organize and cooperate and force Notre Dame into a conference.
Well, with the way things are going with the ACC, I would not be surprised if they jump ship from the ACC just like they did from the Big East in September of 2012. It would not surprise me one bit. So it'll be interesting to see what happens. And I will say I'm pretty excited about what's going to be going on Monday because we're going to be seeing some huge news. Teams officially joining new conferences like USC, UCLA, Oregon, Washington. I'm interested to see who's going to benefit in the long term and who's going to be benefiting in the short term in college football and college basketball and just all throughout the nation.
Yeah, well, they're all benefiting financially. So that's
That is,
that's a good move and a no-brainer for any of those schools financially, regardless of how well they compete in the Big Ten. And it could be a rough year, of course, for UCLA in particular. Uh,
it is a mess over in UCLA. And the only way they can go is up. That's the way I'm looking at it. But I hope they go up, but I'm not really counting on it. That schedule is just miserable.
well, considering they were 8-5 last year, I think that they could go a lot of other different directions than up. But Yeah, UCLA. What do we have here for them? UCLA's got they got that Indiana game in week 2 at the Rose Bowl. They've got LSU outside the conference. Oregon, Penn State back to back. That's rough. Minnesota, Rutgers, Nebraska. They better win some games there. They've got Iowa at home. That's that Friday night. Or is that a no? That's not a Friday night game. I was thinking USC, Rutgers. No, maybe UCLA.
UCLA Washington will be the Friday night game.
UCLA, Washington. They have the dates messed up here then, because that's 7 days later than the Iowa game and 7 days before. So that's not the right date. But anyway, yeah, USC. And then I would like for the Big Ten to do something about the Notre Dame game with USC. I would like to see USC and UCLA play the last game of the season every year and not have UCLA play Fresno State on November 30th. I don't know what can be done about that. I don't know why USC just can't play Notre Dame every year in the middle of October.
Well, it'll be interesting to see what happens with that. I don't know if we're going to be seeing UCLA Fresno State play each other annually. I doubt that highly, but I wonder if they'll go back to playing Cal and Stanford in the years that USC and Notre Dame play each other in the even number years on rivalry week.
Well, not if the ACC has something to do with it. I wouldn't think so.
That is true. But
we don't know how long they're going to be around.
well, they'll probably still call themselves the ACC, but it's probably going to be more like the AAC, where they were the original Big East, but then changed their name to the American Athletic Conference. Although the ACC, we'll probably still see the letters on there, but they may just change it to a different name because they got schools all over that conference now. So,
well, Jackson, what are we sipping on tonight?
well, little coffee on the coffee mug from Top Quality Shirts, of course. And for those that are just wanting to get away from Aunt Susan and Uncle Steve getting mad at each other about who's the better candidate for the 2024 election, come on in to patreon.com/MarkRogersTV, where you can get top-notch exclusive live streams, watch parties, predictions, betting advice, and insider looks. And you can be on College Football After Dark Sunday nights right here on the Voice of College Football. You not only help Mark and the Voice of College Football community, but you also help yourself. How? By giving your top college football analysis on CFB After Dark, where it gets crazy on Sunday nights. And it's a wild ride.
It does get crazy over there on Sunday nights.
Yeah,
you and Sean Garner's usually there, and exploring with Ben, of course.
Oh, yeah. It's a wild adventure, but it's a pretty fun one at that.
All right, Jackson. We appreciate you stopping by and reminding me of that Notre Dame Michigan State news from a couple days ago. And folks, you're looking at our merchandise store. You can grab the link. That's down in the description section of the videos as well. Get yourself a mug just like Jackson. But yeah, Notre Dame, Michigan State. I'm all about that. That is great news. I love it. I always look forward to the Michigan State Notre Dame game. And I don't know if you heard, you might have been online 10 or 15 minutes ago when I was going through various college football playoff scenarios, and I hearkened back to the Michigan State Notre Dame game of 2013.
Oh, wow.
So that was right on cue.
Well, I was definitely eating some dinner a little while ago, but I forgot what the type of pasta it was, but it was yummy.
Nice.
Thank you.
All right, Jackson.
You have a
Jackson
happy
doing a
Friday
great job
night.
for us. And I'm sorry, Jackson, to interrupt, but and then Jackson's certainly a big part of our relaunch on Twitter, folks, that we outlined a few minutes ago. So July 1st, the official Twitter page, X page of the Voice of College Football. Please lock it in there.
There we go. 35 more additions to the magic number 100 for the Big Ten live show.
And we're going to pick those off pretty quickly here, Jackson, because the plan is that for Big Ten Media Days, we'll be live every day. And then we're just going to go live from then on out every day, Big Ten live show, every day, SEC live show. And folks, since I'm thinking of it, we do not want to in any way, we are not like the Power Four, where we are kicking the ACC and the Big 12 to the curb and considering them second-class citizens here at the Voice of College Football. No. We would love to have a Big 12 show. We would love to have an ACC show. So if you have any suggestions out there, any recommendations of folks that would be capable of pulling that off, hit me up at MarkRogersTV at Gmail. Big 12 show, ACC show, or really any particular teams.
Got some exciting days ahead of us, and it's getting closer and closer to kickoff. That's the day I'm really waiting for.
Very good. Jackson, appreciate you being here, man. 65 days.
There we go. I'm excited. Can't come soon enough.
Have a good one.
You too, Mark.
It's our guy, Jackson. Jackson doing a heck of a job. He's all over social media. And again, he is a big part of our relaunch. And again, our Voice of College Football official X page relaunching on July 1st. You will no longer have either the joy or the angst of listening to me rant about whatever I want to. It will be nothing but college football all the time. And certainly if you want to hear my rants, I could not, maybe somebody could decipher this for me. I got a response from somebody today that I thought was rather amusing. And I don't know if they're putting down my college football analysis and complimenting my analysis of other things, or if they're putting down my analysis of other things and raising my analysis of college football. I could not quite get it right here. Let's see. Where is this? Which who knows if I can even find it at this point. Yeah, this may be a bit. Oh, there it is. From somebody called Henny and the Jets. Chad Henne was never with the Jets, was he? No. So we got our guy Henny and the Jets who writes, "Hey man, so when are you stopping the non-football takes?" Which leads me to believe he wants me to stop the non-football takes, which is fine. You can tell me whatever you want. I don't take offense to any type of criticism or whatever. So when are you stopping the non-football takes? And then he says, "You're way more interesting in that arena." I don't know. If somebody could decipher that for me, that would be great. I am going to, since you guys have just left me to rant and rail on whatever, I'm going to bring up, somebody was watching, incredibly, somebody just today was watching my prediction video from the national championship game. So we love when people are watching videos that are 5 months old. That's, hey, great. Go ahead and do that. Whoa, 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 whoa. No. So down, if I can find it in the comments section, why would they not highlight that particular comment? I would think that it's the most recent comment. It just came in a couple hours ago, but I can't find it. And I got 241 comments. So that might be a bit difficult to find. I would think that it would be at the top, but it's not at the top. Is there a way to organize the comments? Guess not. All right. Well, that's fine. We've got a caller. We got Michigan Mike here. Michigan Mike, what's going on?
Hey, how's it going today, man?
I'm good. What's the good word?
Just hanging out, getting off work. I got a couple questions I wanted to ask. I got a couple questions. One, what it seemed like a lot of people are down on Michigan, even though they won 3 straight Big Ten championships and a national championship. I know they lost their head coach, couple players, but if you really watched football and knew that they still have a lot of guys coming back from those teams that was on those 3 straight Big Ten championship teams. So I'm just trying to figure out, what am I missing?
So the first thing I would do, Michigan Mike, when somebody's critical of your team, I would check to see, okay, are these Ohio State fans? So number one, if they're Ohio State fans, then I would just check them off, just discard them. They don't count. They don't count because by and large, are there really fun, reasonable, lighthearted, good, reasonable, logical, fair Ohio State fans? Absolutely.
Sure.
But are there the same category of Michigan fans? Absolutely. But are there a ton that are completely delusional and will say whatever they want just to put down the other team, the other program? Absolutely. So I'm guessing that most of those people are Ohio State fans that just want to troll and trash talk and put your team down. So that's my first guess. After that, I would say that, yeah, there is some reasonable concern anytime you take arguably the best coach in the country, one of the top 3 or 4, and you remove him and a few of his staff. You take a quarterback who was one of the top 10 quarterbacks taken in the NFL draft, and you take the most NFL draft selections, 13, and they move on. So there's all those concerns and a defensive coordinator. But I don't have any serious concerns about Michigan football this year. I believe that Michigan's going to be contending for a Big Ten championship. I believe that the coaching continuity is very important. I think that they've been very wise and orchestrated in making sure that they keep the structure, the framework, the culture that they've built. They have protected that as much as you possibly can in this type of coaching change, and that their defense is going to be lights out. They've had some losses along the offensive line, of course, but I expect them to be strong in the running game. They may have more depth at running back, even though they've lost Blake Corum, than they have during this entire Harbaugh / now Sharon Moore era. They've got arguably the best tight end in college football. Their wide receiver core is not going to cause too many jaws to drop, but they'll be capable.
Yes.
I think that they'll be able to find a quarterback to execute the offense. They've got 3 candidates at least. The probabilities are that one of those 3 guys are going to be up to the challenge. So I expect Michigan to have an excellent football team this year.
Yeah, so do I. I have one. I got another question. I've been thinking about. This Oregon. I keep hearing about an Oregon team. Coming to the Big Ten, and a lot of people have them like number 1 or number 2 in the Big Ten. And if I remember correctly, they was in the Pac-10, Pac-12 last year. They lost a couple games to a Washington team. They got kind of smothered and smacked around by a Michigan team. So I'm trying to figure out what am I missing with them coming to the Big Ten and supposed to be taking over the Big Ten.
Well, they have an extremely talented team. They may have the best wide receiver core in the conference or in the country. They have the guy that was probably the best transfer quarterback in the nation that comes in to replace Bo Nix and should put up similar numbers. They've just been a excellent football team that's been highly recruited, well coached.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, they lost two extremely tight, excruciating games to Washington last year.
Yes.
I wouldn't. I understand you connecting the dots between the Michigan-Washington game and the Washington-Oregon games, but I would also not necessarily back that up as the way to compare the two teams.
Well, being that it was so recent and the games were played like almost back to back, almost. Um, so I kind of, I was grading off of that a little bit. Yes, I was. Yeah.
Yeah, and I get that. That's one way to look at it. Sure.
Yeah, I was just
I'm not
wondering.
saying that that's completely invalid to do that. It's not.
Yeah, I was just wondering, because I believe the Big Ten is a pretty good conference. So for a team just to come in and just start dominating, I was just kind of wondering about that.
Well, I believe that this conference has a chance to be the best conference in college football this year, and I believe that even though it was close and can be argued that it was the second best conference in college football last year.
And another thing that bothers me, I'm sorry I'm rambling on, but the Ohio State, they got a lot of what they call them, blue chip players, I guess,
Yes.
on their roster this year. They what people say, drop the heavy bag this off season, and got some players. So I do understand that. I totally understand that. Um, but if someone whooped you for uh, 3 straight years, at some point you have to start to like, hey, I need to quit overlooking this team.
You
I'm
think
just
that Ohio State is overlooking Michigan?
um, kind of,
Okay.
kind of.
I've never seen a team or a program that's been more obsessed with another team than Ohio State is with Michigan. So I really don't think that they're overlooking them.
Well, let's not say overlook. Still don't think they respect Michigan as much as they possibly should. You know, due
If
to a lot of excuses come up a lot of times. A lot of excuses come up a lot of times.
Well,
So
those are two different things. Excuses and not taking them seriously or overlooking them, those aren't necessarily the same thing.
okay, well,
I just to complete my point, the obsession that Ohio State has with beating Michigan and always has, to the point where all you have to do is walk into the athletic center and you see the countdown clock to the Michigan game every day of the year. You see reminders all over the football complex of who their rival is, who's the team to beat, what have you done to beat Michigan? Going back to Urban Meyer and possibly before that, because Jim Tressel certainly put a target on Michigan and other coaches before him, Woody Hayes being the first. Really the first modern coach, I should say. I think that now, whether that gets through to the players, you may have a point there. I can't guarantee whether it gets through to the players themselves. Yeah, there is something to be said for recruiting players from outside the state that don't necessarily have the same urgency. They don't have the same focus. They don't have the same intensity for the rivalry. They don't understand it. They know that it exists, but they don't think it's anything special. That's possible that, yeah, Ohio State could be big and fat and happy. And, understand that while you're saying this about Ohio State losing 3 consecutive times to Michigan turned it around finally after basically losing for 20 years to Ohio State.
Yeah. It was it was a long run. Yes, it was a very long, painful run. Yes.
So I
But I
don't
just
want
don't.
to discount your football team. I think you should give more credit to your football team and your football program, because I bet I've heard 50 times this offseason about how down Ohio State is, and they're down. They're not what they were. They lack motivation. They've got culture issues and all this other stuff. And the only thing I can think of is if you have all those problems in your football program and you came within 35 yards of being 12-0 and the number 1 seed in the playoff, then you must be damn talented and you must be better than everybody else. If you have all those psychological issues with your football team and you still are that close to being a possible national champion, I don't know that it can be both ways. People seem to want to argue both ways, and that's just not possible.
Well, I was still. They did lose to that team, Missouri, and that was kind of. I didn't understand that because they do have better. There are 5 stars and 10 stars all over the board, so they should have walked in there.
Yeah, first of all, Missouri was a good team. Let's not discount that.
They were decent
They were a good
team.
team. They were one of the 10 best teams in America. Okay, let's also understand that. Do you think Michigan would have fared differently if they lost their 2 top quarterbacks, if they were playing with their 3rd string quarterback? Okay, that's what Ohio State was playing. They were playing with a 3rd string quarterback. They were playing without starters along the offensive line. They were playing without possibly the best player in America at wide receiver. And they also had guys sit out on defense. So that's not. Now, on one hand, am I making an excuse?
Yes.
Well, no, I'm just letting you know if you're criticizing or if you are pointing out a performance in a particular game, well, when you don't have the players, no, I'm not excusing it. The games all count regardless of who shows up to the games. But we wouldn't be talking all December and January about players sitting out if it didn't matter. If it didn't matter who wears the uniform, can I take an Ohio State uniform and run out there and play Missouri in the Cotton Bowl and it doesn't matter? I'm representing Ohio State. Yes, it matters who's on the field. It matters. So they lost fair and square, but they were missing some really exceptional football players.
You do have to take that into consideration. You do. Yes, you do. I don't know. I'm just I hadn't heard, not that I know of, I hadn't heard any Ohio State player or coach just flat out say, "Hey, Michigan just beat our butts." I've heard a lot of it was cold or we had belly aches and stuff like that.
What Ohio State player ever said it was cold? I've never heard. I've heard this from fans, but I think sometimes we get mixed up between what the fan bases are saying, because that's all we ever hear from on social media and otherwise, versus the actual players. I never heard a play, and I might be wrong because I don't sit around looking for player interviews because they bore me. So you might be right. I don't know. I would love for somebody to let us know if there were any Ohio State players that made excuses about the weather. I never heard it from an Ohio State player.
Gotcha. Well, this is rumors I've heard also. So I was just, just unfortunately repeating rumors that I've heard.
Well, but, Michigan Mike, we try to clear things up here at the Voice of College Football. And again, I'm not saying that they didn't do that. I've heard that just from a bunch of fans, and I've never heard them ever say, oh, Marvin Harrison Jr. said it was too cold out there, or CJ Stroud said it was too cold, or whatever. I've never heard that from anyone.
Gotcha. Well, it's probably just a rumor, but yeah, I still haven't heard that. But yeah, I just have a few questions to ask. I appreciate you taking my call. I really do.
Michigan Mike, thanks for being here. We appreciate
No problem. Thank you.
Michigan Mike, love that phone call because he would bring something to the table. I would let him know this is what I believe to be true. So he analyzed his football team first and foremost and said, if anyone noticed, what do you think of Michigan this year? They seem to be disrespected. And I said, I don't know why they're disrespected. Although there are considerations to be made. You lose a top 10 quarterback. You lose 13 players to the NFL draft. You lose your head coach, who's one of the best in the sport. You replace him with a coach that's completely unproven, and so forth and so on. Those are legitimate concerns. But Ohio State and other programs have come into those same concerns. Ryan Day took over for Urban Meyer, and Justin Fields was a brand new quarterback. And that's why ESPN said that Ohio State, their FPI that season in 2019, gave Ohio State a 6% chance of winning the Big Ten. I could stop the show for like 10 minutes of silence to prove my point, to say, does that resonate with anyone? 2019, going into the season, just because Ohio State's got a new quarterback and a new head coach, the ESPN FPI, and this is after, 2018, 17, 16, 15. We know Ohio State was the best team in the Big Ten all those years. That the ESPN FPI gave Ohio State a 6% chance of not winning the national championship, of winning the Big Ten in 2019. I don't know any universe in which Ohio State only wins the Big Ten 6 out of 100 times, especially at a time when they were winning it 6 out of 10 times. So now here we are going into 2024. And similar things are being said about Michigan. And there are legitimate points to be made, but I think this is an extremely good football team. I think the football program is going to continue to march on. Now, whether Sharon Moore becomes a true Jim Harbaugh replacement long term is another issue. But yeah, they could be one of the 10 or 15 best teams in America, and still go 9-3. I would lean 10-2 right now. I lean 10-2 over 9-3, and I'm seeing a lot of stupid comments in the chat. I wish people would call me. I see a lot of morons in the chat making stupid comments, but I see a lot of smart people making interesting comments in the chat as well. So we're always going to have a mixed bag. We've got an SEC live show that we do every Tuesday at 11 a.m. Eastern time, and similar to the Big Ten show, we will take that live for SEC Media Days. All right. Blue Wolverine, I wasn't calling you out. I don't know what you said. I saw some other stupid comments, but I didn't see anything from Blue Wolverine. But Blue Wolverine, fine. Okay, the point about being 35 yards away from beating Michigan, why is that not an obvious point? You would have to be a complete moron not to acknowledge that. But it doesn't matter if they were 1 yard away. Alabama was 3 yards away from tying the game and going to another over. You can make, that doesn't discard the loss. Michigan won the game fair and square. Michigan was the better team. Michigan was a better football team last year than Ohio State. It's also reasonable for any Ohio State individual to, just like Michigan has in the past, although Michigan's never been, when Ohio State was beating Michigan's brains out, Michigan was rarely as close to Ohio State as Ohio State is to Michigan. 2016. I have no issue with any Michigan fan saying we should have won that game. We should have won that game. We would have went to the Big Ten championship game. We probably would have gone to the playoff, although they would have had a pretty stiff challenge against Wisconsin. But anyway, most likely would have gone to the playoff. I have no issue with any Michigan fan saying that. I have an issue with a Michigan fan who says we made that run for sure. That was spotted wrong, and we got the first down for sure. That's a stupid statement to make, just like it would be stupid for me to say he got it for sure. That play was so close, it's completely impossible to determine whether JT Barrett made it in 2016. But my point is, aside from that year, yeah, that's the only year that Michigan was anywhere in the ballpark close to Ohio State, whether that be throughout the season, record-wise, or in the game. So we've got a different dynamic here. We've got Michigan eclipsing Ohio State, but Ohio State's still one of the... I think Ohio State's got the best talent of anyone in the country this year. Now they have to go out and play like it, and I don't know that the quarterback is going to be up to it to win a national championship. But I think it's the best roster, like 1 through 20. I think that's pretty, I don't think it's debatable. Obviously, Georgia's probably got the best roster. I stand on Georgia having the best roster 1 through 105. I believe Ohio State has the best talent, the best players 1 through 15 or 20. They have the most elite players at wide receiver, in the secondary, defensive line, running backs. They're the best. Shoot, all you have to do is look, you look at any publication and the thing is littered with Ohio State All-Americans. But that doesn't win football games. That's impressive. It should win you football games. So if anyone has any issue with anything that I've stated tonight, they should give me a call. So we will remind you that we've got a USC call-in show coming up tonight at 10 o'clock Eastern time. 10 o'clock Eastern time, the USC call-in show. Steven says, don't do that, Mark. You were right the first time. 9-3 at best for the Cheaters. I didn't say 9-3 at best. I said I could see them being one of the 10 to 15 best teams in the country and still being 9-3. Just like somebody made a dumb comment about Missouri not being one of the 10 best teams in college football last year. Did you watch any college football last year? Probably not. All right, folks, we do appreciate you being here. Anyone calling, going once, going twice, going 3 times, and we're off to the USC show, 10 p.m. Eastern time. Please check it out with Tim and Matt over on the USC channel. Thank you so much for being here. And I am going to, I'm distracted by these comments, and I typically am not. I am going to, I'm going to consider, I would love to do a video on every season in college football and run through the national championship race and go through that. You know what? We should stir things up before we leave here. I enjoyed posting this earlier today, and this was not premeditated, but at the same time, over the course of doing some analysis and contemplating looking through these national championships, I thought, okay, Mark, at what year are you going to start to take these national championship seasons seriously? So let's understand that if you go all the way back to 1869, so 1869, folks, if you're not aware, was the first college football game. And in 1869, Rutgers won the first college football game. And Rutgers actually claims a national championship in 1869. I verified this about 4 different sites. Rutgers claims a national championship in 1869. They played 2 games, and they didn't even win both of them. They split 2 games with Princeton, and Rutgers unashamedly, I verified this in a few locations. Rutgers people, please tell me it's not true. Rutgers claims a national championship from 1869, going 1-1. Oh my word. Okay. So anyway, I knew that 1869 was the first year of college football. So I went on Wikipedia and I looked up the college football season for 1869, and I saw what I knew already was present because I've looked at it before. There were 2 games played, 1-1, 1-1, Princeton and Rutgers. Okay. I went to 1870, 71, 72, 73, 74. I'm thinking, at what point can I consider one of these seasons legitimate? And I go through about 20, 25 years, and we're talking about, for 15 or 20 years, like 5 teams playing, 11 teams playing. At some point, we got around 1900 to about 22 teams playing. And then I discover this gem, which, again, it's something else that I've known for a long, long time. But I thought I came across the advent of the forward pass. And the first college football game in which a forward pass was completed was 1906. Okay. This was a mammoth showdown between, I believe, St. Louis University and somebody else you've never heard of. It took another 7 years before they actually changed the rules to somewhat update and encourage teams to throw the football, because during this time in which you could choose to throw a forward pass in college football, but you know what the limitations were? Number 1, you had to be 5 yards behind the line of scrimmage. Number 2, you could not throw the ball into the end zone. Number 3, if you threw a pass and it was incomplete, you automatically gave up the possession. Now, if anything deters a team from deciding to throw the ball, it would be that. Oh, we're running the ball, we're running the ball, we're running the ball. Oh, we decide to pass, the dude drops the ball, or it's a bad pass. We lose the football. Okay, so nobody's going to throw the football under those circumstances. You also weren't allowed to gain more than 20 yards on a forward pass. So these are the passing rules that existed between 1906 and 1913. Starting in 1913, we then at least were given the rules, and the rules were modified to at least allow the ball to be thrown up to 40 yards, and for that team just to have a down counted against it if they had an incomplete pass. They did not have to give up the ball, and just a couple reasonable rules. So really, when I state that the modern rules, and I put it in the term semi-modern rules because that's what it was, because it's still were not the modern rules of college football in terms of throwing the football. I went through all these national championships from 1869 all the way up until 1913. And I saw schools like Auburn, LSU, Vanderbilt, Penn State, Wisconsin, Pitt. All of them were awarded national championships during those years at different times by different services. I went to each individual team site, and none of those schools claim any of those national championships. None of them. 0. Auburn's got 2. They say, nope, they don't count. LSU's got 1. Nope. Vanderbilt has 2. Nope. Penn State has 2 national championships. Nope. Wisconsin has a national championship. Pitt has a national championship. Nope. Nope. So next time we get into some kind of argument concerning how many national championships teams have, what's Penn State got? They won one in 86, 82 and 86. So they've got 2, correct? They could claim, oh my word, they could claim 10. They could claim 2 right here. And then they've got other ones, 94. They should claim that. Why they don't, I have no idea. So Rutgers claims this ridiculous national championship in 1869. Michigan claims 4 national championships. when the game didn't even involve throwing the football. Four of those legitimate national championships. Four of those. Good Lord. Is this really college football? What do we got? We got guys in suits and sweaters playing football. Okay. All right, folks. Keep chopping. History counts and history matters. When you're able to make up your own history, that's different. So when Rutgers in 1869 can say, we won the national championship, there you go. And people asking me questions in the chat that don't make much sense. All right. We appreciate you being here at the Voice of College Football. Thank you so much for stopping by again. It's the USC show. It's coming up at 10 Eastern and 7 Pacific, folks. So join Tim, join Matt. It's always a good time, and it's always very informative and awfully fun. So we will see you then. Love what I do as a sports commentator. I have definitely been blessed. I enjoy my career. But I got to say, if I could turn back time, I would learn the business side of sports management, how to manage people, how to manage projects, how to manage situations. And then there's also those times in which you feel stuck in a job, stuck in a career, just feeling that there's a dead end and wondering and waiting, when is that break going to happen? Well, unfortunately, I got to tell you, that break is not coming unless you make it happen. Sports is your passion. You love it, you live it, you breathe it. Why not make your passion your career? Introducing Southern New Hampshire University, our sponsor. At SNHU, you will learn the business side of sports, sports management principles, and how to gather and analyze data. This degree will help you prepare for a career as an athletic director, sports information director, marketing manager, and other exciting roles in the sports industry. You'll be able to tap into SNHU's network of graduates working in sports-related organizations. You'll also have the opportunity to take advantage of an internship or an experiential learning course within the field. Your courses are taught by faculty with real-world experience, so you'll have opportunities to connect with people in the industry. And when you graduate, SNHU will be right there to help you with your job search. SNHU is accredited, nonprofit, and has radically affordable tuition. SNHU was voted one of the country's most innovative universities by U.S. News and World Report. Just go to snhu.edu/VOCFB. The link's also in my description section down below to see if you qualify for SNHU's sports management program. You might be eligible for financial aid or have existing college credits that could fast-track your degree at SNHU. Click the link to get started. Your exciting sports management degree at SNHU awaits you. Do it now.